His stars looked different from Station Prime. Park stood at the viewing window of the massive space station and watched ships of all sizes come and go. Some were small, carrying traders and merchants. Others were enormous, bigger than entire cities back on Earth. He had seen pictures before, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Humanity had finally arrived at the center of galactic civilization. The journey from Earth had taken 3 months, and his team of 12 diplomats had used that time to study everything they could about the Galactic Council. 12 ancient species ruled this part of the galaxy. They had built empires while humans were still learning to make fire. They had conquered stars while humans were fighting wars with swords and spears. Now these powerful beings had invited humanity to join them. Knew he should feel honored. Instead, he felt like a child walking into a room full of adults who were deciding whether to let him sit at the table. "Ambassador, they are ready for us," said his aide and translator. She was young, barely 30 years old, but she spoke 14 alien languages fluently. More importantly, she noticed things that others missed. Straightened his formal uniform. "How do we look?" "Like humans," replied with a small smile. "That is exactly how we should look." The council chamber was built to impress. Massive pillars rose toward a ceiling so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Light came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The seats of the 12 ruling species formed a circle around a central platform where visitors were meant to stand and be judged. Walked to that platform with his head held high. Around him, beings of impossible shapes and sizes watched with various expressions. Some had eyes. Some had other ways of seeing. All of them were looking at the small group of soft, fragile humans who had dared to leave their little blue planet. The chair spoke first. There were tall beings made of living crystal. Light passed through their bodies and came out in rainbow colors. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Humans of Earth," the chair said, its voice like music played on glass instruments. "You have been observed, you have been tested, you have been found acceptable." That word hung in the air. Acceptable, not impressive, not remarkable, just acceptable. Bowed his head respectfully. "We thank the Council for this opportunity. Humanity is eager to learn and to contribute." A sound that might have been laughter came from the section. They looked like giant insects, with hard shells and many legs. Their representative clicked its mandibles together. "What can humans contribute?" they asked. "You have no unique technology, your ships are slow, your weapons are weak, your bodies break so easily." More clicking sounds. "You live for what? 80 years, 100. I have clothes older than your entire civilization." Some of the other representatives made sounds of amusement. They who looked like walking fish gurgled in what seemed like agreement. The small, furry beings called the chittered among themselves. Kept his expression calm. He had expected this. His briefings had warned him that humanity would be seen as inferior. He had practiced his response many times. "You are correct," he said simply. "We are young, we are weak, we have much to learn." He paused and looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. "But we are here. We survived our own world trying to kill us. We survived wars and diseases and disasters. We crawled out of our caves and reached for the stars. Perhaps we have nothing to teach you, but we are very good at learning." The chamber fell silent, was not sure if he had said the right thing. Then the chair made a gesture that translated to approval. "Humanity will be assigned to the outer spiral," the chair announced. "Mining rights to the systems, trade status at basic level, full membership review in 1 standard century." 100 years. Did the math in his head. He would be long dead before humanity could even request better treatment. But he smiled and bowed again. "We accept these generous terms." The meeting ended quickly after that. The powerful species had already lost interest in their members. There were trade disputes to settle, territory to divide, ancient grudges to maintain. Humans were not important enough to think about for long. Az and his team walked back to their ship, moved close to him. "They do not respect us," she said quietly. "They think we are nothing." "I know. Does that not anger you?" Stopped walking and looked back at Station Prime. Somewhere inside that massive structure, beings who had existed for millions of years had just dismissed humanity as barely worth noticing. "My grandmother survived a war," he said. "She told me stories about soldiers who came to her village. They had better weapons, more men, everything they needed to win. They looked at her and saw a small, weak girl, not worth worrying about." He smiled, but there was something cold in his eyes. "She outlived every single one of them." "Understood, so we wait. We wait, we watch, we learn, and we never ever forget how they treated us today." For 5 years, humanity did exactly that. They mined the worthless moons they had been given. They traded fairly with anyone who would deal with them. They asked few questions and caused no trouble. They were the perfect quiet newcomers, easy to ignore and easier to forget. The Galactic Council stopped thinking about Earth entirely. The humans were handled, contained, no longer worth discussion. They had no idea what was coming. 7B was not a beautiful world. The sky was orange instead of blue. The rocks were sharp and wind blew constantly across the empty plains, carrying dust that got into everything. But to the 40,000 humans who lived there, it was home. Governor walked through the main dome of New Seoul, the colony's largest settlement. Around her, life happened in all its messy, wonderful ways. Children ran between the legs of adults, laughing and shouting. Merchants sold vegetables grown in the underground farms. Old women sat together and complained about the weather, just as old women had done on Earth for thousands of years. This was what had built, not just buildings and farms, but a community, a future. "Governor, the school wants to know if you can visit tomorrow," said her assistant, a young man named. "The children are doing a play about the first landing." Smiled, "Tell them I would not miss it." She remembered that first landing herself. 10 years ago, she had stepped off the colony ship and looked at the harsh, empty world that would become her responsibility. Many people had cried that day, overwhelmed by how far they were from Earth. Had not cried. She had seen opportunity. Now 40,000 people called this place home. Bobbies had been born here who had never seen Earth, never felt its sun on their faces. To them, the orange sky was normal. The sharp rocks were just the way rocks were supposed to be. Loved every single one of them. That night she was working late in her office when the first alarm sounded. At first, she thought it was a drill. They had drills sometimes, practicing for emergencies. Then she saw the look on his face as he burst through her door. "Ships," he gasped. "Unknown ships. They are not responding to communications." Ran to the command center. The screens showed 17 vessels entering the atmosphere. They were not human ships. They were not any design the colony recognized. "Try all channels," ordered. "Every language we have. Find out who they are and what they want." The communications officer worked frantically. "No response, Governor. They are ignoring everything." On the screen, the ships descended toward the colony. They were moving fast, too fast for a peaceful landing. Felt her stomach turn cold. "Sound the general alarm. Everyone to the shelters, now." But it was already too late. The first explosion destroyed the eastern dome. 3,000 people died in seconds, their air stolen away as the protective shell shattered. The second explosion hit the hospital. The third hit the school where was supposed to watch a play tomorrow. She stood frozen, watching her world end. "Governor, we need to move," said, pulling her arm. "The bunker." "The children," whispered. "All those children." The attack lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 32,000 humans were dead. The ones who survived were dragged from the rubble by soldiers in strange armor. They did not speak any human language. They did not explain what they wanted. They simply loaded the survivors onto transport ships like cargo. hid in a collapsed building, watching through a crack in the debris. She saw old Park grandmother from the market get shoved into line. She saw Little, who was only 4 years old, crying as a soldier carried him away from his mother's body. She saw her people, her family, being taken. She could not save them. She could only bear witness. When the soldiers were busy loading prisoners, crawled to the emergency communication station. It was damaged but still working. She had maybe 5 minutes before they found her. Her hands shook as she recorded her message. "This is Governor of 7B Colony. We have been attacked by unknown forces. The colony is destroyed. 32,000 dead. The survivors are being taken." She paused, fighting to keep her voice steady. "They came for something under the ground, I think. The mineral surveys mentioned it. We told them we would not sell. This is their answer." Explosions sounded closer. Heard boots running toward her position. 8,000 survivors being transported to unknown location, mostly elderly and children. The fighters died first. Her voice cracked. "Tell Earth, tell them what happened here. Tell them we did not surrender, not one of us." The door burst open. Soldiers pointed weapons at her, did not run. She did not beg. She stood tall and looked at them with all the dignity she had left. "Tell them we died as humans," she said into the recorder. "Tell them we died standing." Then she pressed send, just before the first shot hit her. The message traveled through space for 3 days. It passed through relay stations and communication networks, bouncing from system to system until it reached Earth. Millions of people heard Governor's final words. They heard the fear she tried to hide. They heard the pride she could not contain. They heard her die. Ambassador Park brought the message to the Galactic Council himself. He played it in the great chamber where humanity had once been called acceptable. He watched the faces of the 12 ruling species as they listened to a woman describe the murder of her people. When it ended, the chair spoke with no emotion in its crystal voice. "This is a regrettable incident. Humanity may file a formal complaint through proper channels." "Proper channels," repeated. "The process typically takes 15 to 20 standard years, perhaps less if the evidence is clear. 20 years. The children taken from the colony would grow old in slavery waiting for justice. The dead would be forgotten. The killers would never be punished." Looked at the chair, at all of them. These ancient beings who had watched 32,000 humans die and called it regrettable. "I understand," he said quietly. "We will handle this ourselves." That night Captain Han of the Earth Defense Force received his orders. They were simple. They were clear. Find the survivors. Find the killers. Show the galaxy what humans do to those who hurt their own. The hunt had begun. Captain Han had served in space for 20 years. He had seen things that would give most people nightmares. He had fought pirates and rescued stranded ships, and once spent 3 weeks floating in a damaged vessel, waiting for rescue that almost came too late. None of that had prepared him for this mission. He stood on the bridge of the Retribution and studied the faces of his crew. 300 men and women, the best Earth had to offer. They had all heard Governor's final message. They had all volunteered for this mission without hesitation. "Captain, we have a course plotted," said his navigation officer, a serious woman named Shin. "The trail starts at 7B. Then that is where we begin." The Retribution was not supposed to exist. While humanity played the role of the peaceful newcomer, their best engineers had been building something different. They had studied every alien technology they could get their hands on. They had taken apart captured pirate ships. They had reverse-engineered weapons and engines and shields from a dozen different species. The Galactic Council thought humans were harmless. They had no idea. The journey to 7B took 4 days. Spent that time in his quarters, watching Governor's message again and again. He memorized her face, her voice, the moment when she told Earth that her people died standing. He promised himself that her sacrifice would not be forgotten. When they arrived at the colony, there was nothing left, just broken domes and scattered debris and the bodies that no one had bothered to bury. Ordered his crew to collect the dead, every single one. They would be returned to Earth for proper burial. "Captain, we found something," called one of his officers. Walked to where the man was standing. On the ground lay a small toy, a stuffed bear with one ear missing. It was covered in ash and blood. Nearby lay a woman's body, her arms still reaching towards something that was no longer there. A mother trying to protect her child. Picked up the toy carefully. "We will find the child who owned this," he said quietly, "and we will bring them home." His intelligence officer worked without sleep for 6 days. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind like a computer. The attackers had tried to hide their trail, but they had made mistakes. Everyone made mistakes. "The mercenaries were hired by the consortium," reported, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "The communications are heavily encrypted, but I broke their codes." "How long did their experts say it would take?" "Years," almost smiled. "They underestimated us." The information painted a clear picture. They had discovered deposits under the colony. They had asked humanity to sell. When humanity refused, they had hired mercenaries to solve the problem permanently. The survivors had been sold to a labor camp on a world called 3. 8,000 people said, mostly children and elderly. "The fighters died protecting them," confirmed. "The young and strong are all gone. The ones left are the ones who could not fight." Closed his eyes. He thought about those children, alone and afraid, wondering if anyone would come for them. He thought about the old people, forced to work until their bodies gave out. He thought about the executives, sitting in comfortable offices and counting their profits. "Set course for 3, he ordered. "Maximum speed." The labor camp was a nightmare made real. Thousands of beings from dozens of species worked in underground mines, digging for minerals until they collapsed. The guards were cruel because cruelty kept the workers afraid. The food was barely enough to survive on. The sleeping quarters were cold and dark and crowded. The human prisoners had been there for 2 weeks. Already, some of them had died from exhaustion. The rest were losing hope. Little Park, 4 years old, sat in the corner of the children's barracks. He still clutched his missing toy, the stuffed bear with one ear. He had lost it when the soldiers took him. He kept hoping someone would bring it back. His grandmother, Park, held him close. "Someone will come," she whispered. "Someone will find us." Did not believe her anymore. Then the explosion started. Sergeant Major O led the first wave of Marines into the compound. She was a tall woman with hard eyes and a voice that could make soldiers run through fire. Her team had trained for exactly this kind of operation. They moved through the camp like shadows, fast and deadly and precise. The guards never had a chance. "Sector 1 clear," called one of her soldiers. "Sector 2 clear." "I have civilians, human civilians, they are alive." Ran toward the location. She burst into the barracks and found herself looking at hundreds of frightened faces. Old men and women, teenagers, children. One small boy looked up at her with wide eyes. He was holding an empty space against his chest, like he was hugging something invisible. "Are you real?" the boy whispered. Knelt down to his level. She reached into her pack and pulled out something she had carried all the way from 7B, a stuffed bear with one ear missing. "I think this belongs to you," she said gently. Grabbed the toy and burst into tears. Around him, the other prisoners began to realize what was happening. They were being rescued. Someone had come for them. The operation took 4 hours. Every single human survivor was recovered and brought to the Retribution. Medical teams treated the injured. Counselors spoke with the traumatized. Food was provided, real food, not the garbage the camp had fed them. When the last prisoner was safe aboard, addressed his crew. "We have our people back. Now we finish the job." He looked at the star charts showing the mercenary fleet's location. They are celebrating on Prime. They think they got away with murder. The Retribution turned toward space. Let us show them how wrong they are. The mercenary fleet was drinking and celebrating when the Retribution arrived. 17 ships filled with soldiers who had burned a colony and sold survivors into slavery. They had been paid well. They had been promised protection. The consortium had told them that no one would ever come looking for justice. Captain Han opened communications on all channels. This is Captain Han of the Earth vessel Retribution. You attacked our colony, you killed our people, you took our children. His voice was calm, almost gentle. I am giving you one chance. Surrender now and you will face trial. Resist and you will face me. The mercenary commander laughed. His face appeared on the screen, a creature with 3 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. One ship. You brought one ship against 17. Humans really are as stupid as everyone says. I will not ask again. Then do not ask. The commander cut the transmission. Nodded to his weapons officer. Disable their engines first. I want them alive to stand trial. The battle lasted 12 minutes. The mercenaries had never fought humans before. They had heard the stories about the weak, soft species that lived such short lives. They expected easy prey. Instead, they found the Retribution moving faster than any ship they had ever seen. Human weapons punched through their shields like they were made of paper. Human tactics confused and divided their fleet. Ship after ship went dark, engines destroyed, weapons offline. The mercenaries screamed for help on every channel. No help came. When it was over, 17 vessels drifted in space, broken and powerless. Escape pods launched from some of them, carrying crews who had decided surrender was better than death. Ordered his Marines to board the disabled ships. They found mercenaries hiding in closets and behind locked doors. Most surrendered immediately. They had never seen such efficient, relentless hunters. They had never imagined that the weak humans could do this to them. Some mercenaries did not surrender. Sergeant Major O found the ones who had been directly responsible for the deaths of children. They tried to fight. They tried to run. It did not matter. Justice said quietly as she finished her work. That is what this is. News of the battle spread faster than light. The Galactic Council was already in session when Ambassador Park requested an emergency audience. The chair, annoyed by the interruption, gave him 5 minutes. Walked to the central platform where humanity had once been dismissed as acceptable. He stood straight and looked at the 12 ruling species with eyes that showed no fear. 5 days ago, he began, 32,000 of my people were murdered, children burned alive, families torn apart, survivors sold as slaves. He let those words hang in the air. We brought this matter to the council. We were told to file a formal complaint. We were told the process would take 15 to 20 years. The chair made an impatient gesture. Ambassador, we have already discussed this matter. No, interrupted. You dismissed it. There is a difference. Gasps echoed through the chamber. No one interrupted the chair. No one. Continued as if nothing had happened. Humanity did not wait for your process. We could not. Our people were suffering. Our children were crying for help, so we helped ourselves. He made a signal, and the chamber's screens came alive. Every representative could see the footage from Prime's orbital space. The mercenary fleet destroyed and drifting. The Retribution hanging in the darkness like a predator that had finished its meal. We found the mercenaries, said. We disabled their ships. We captured their crews. The ones who surrendered will stand trial on Earth. The ones who hurt children, he paused. They are no longer anyone's concern. The ambassador rose from its seat, mandibles clicking furiously. This is outrageous. This is an act of war. You attacked vessels in sovereign space. I attacked murderers, replied calmly. I attacked slavers. I attacked those who burned bobbies in their cribs and laughed about it. He turned to face the directly. Your consortium funded this atrocity. We have the records. We have the communications. We have the names of every executive who approved the operation." The ambassador went very still. "Those individuals have 24 hours to surrender themselves to Earth custody," continued. "They will receive fair trials, they will have lawyers, they will have every protection that they to the children of 7B. His voice hardened. "If they do not surrender, we will come for them, through every system, past every fleet, around every obstacle. We will not stop, we will not forget, we will not give up." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded that humanity be expelled from the council. Others called for sanctions. The ambassador tried to flee but found the doors blocked by council security. Through it all, stood silent on the central platform. Finally, the chair restored order. Its crystalline form pulsed with colors that indicated deep concern. "Ambassador Park, humanity has violated numerous council protocols. You have taken military action without authorization. You have entered sovereign space without permission. You have executed prisoners without trial." "We executed war criminals who refused to surrender," corrected. "There is a difference. The council cannot simply allow." "The council allowed 32,000 people to die." His voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "The council told us to wait while our children worked themselves to death in labor camps. The council protected the killers and abandoned the victims." He looked around the room, meeting every eye that would meet his. "Your protocols failed, your system failed, so we built our own." He smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. "We are not asking permission. We are not requesting approval. We are informing you of what humanity does to those who murder our families." The chair had no response. Turned and walked toward the exit. At the door he stopped and spoke one last time. "The executives have 24 hours. I suggest they use them wisely." He left the chamber in silence. Behind him, the Galactic Council realized something they had never imagined. The small, weak, short-lived humans were not victims waiting for protection. They were not children needing guidance. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species that protected its own, no matter the cost. The galaxy held its breath and watched what happened next. 3 executives surrendered within 12 hours. They arrived at the Earth Embassy with lawyers and bodyguards and demands for special treatment. They received none of it. They were processed like any other prisoners, given the same food and the same cells as the mercenaries they had hired. The remaining 4 executives tried to run. They had money and connections and ships fast enough to reach the far edges of known space. They thought they could hide forever. They thought wrong. Captain Hand did not sleep until every single one was captured. It took 8 days. He chased them across 4 star systems. He tracked them through space stations and hidden bases, and even a luxury resort where one executive had been enjoying a vacation. When the last one was in custody, finally allowed himself to rest. The trials were broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as humans presented evidence with cold precision. Communications showing the attack was planned months in advance. Financial records showing exactly how much money each executive had approved. Testimony from survivors describing what they had endured. Little Park via video. He was too young to be in the courtroom, but he told his story anyway. He described hiding under his mother's body as soldiers walked past. He described being thrown onto a transport ship. He described the labor camp where he thought he would die. When he finished, many beings across the galaxy were crying. Some species had never cried before. They learned how that day. The executives were found guilty. They received life sentences in human prisons. Not death, because humans believed even murderers deserved trials and justice. But they would never hurt anyone again. After the trials ended, something unexpected happened. Humanity began rewarding kindness. They had secretly sheltered some colony survivors during the attack. A trader had hidden 6 human children in his cargo hold when the mercenaries came. He had kept them safe for 3 days until he could smuggle them to a rescue ship. He had never expected anything in return. Earth gave the exclusive trade agreements worth billions. The trader who saved the children received a medal and a gift that his species valued above all others, a seed from Earth, capable of growing in water. Within a year, his had forests of cherry trees blooming beside their purple seas. A scientist had leaked the consortium's communications. She had risked her career, her freedom, her life to help humanity find the killers. Earth offered her asylum. She came to work at humanity's finest research center and spent her remaining centuries making discoveries that benefited everyone. Every being who had shown humanity kindness was rewarded. Every insult and cruelty was remembered. The galaxy began to understand a simple truth about humans. They never forgot anything, good or bad, helpful or harmful. It all stayed in their memories forever. Ambassador Park addressed the Galactic Council one final time. The same chamber where humanity had once been dismissed as irrelevant was now filled with representatives who listened to every word he said. "We are not a strong species," admitted. "We cannot lift great weights. We cannot survive in vacuum. We cannot live for thousands of years like many of you." He looked around the room slowly. "But we remember, we return, we repay." He let those words sink in before continuing. "Hurt us and we will find you. No matter how long it takes, no matter how far you run, we will come." His voice softened slightly. "But help us and we will never forget that either. We will be your allies, your friends, your partners for as long as both our species exist. We remember kindness just as clearly as we remember cruelty." The Council voted unanimously to grant humanity full membership status that day. They did not do it out of respect. They did it out of something closer to fear, but did not mind. Fear was a good start. Respect could come later. Captain Han returned to Earth a hero, though he did not feel like one. He had done his duty, nothing more. He had brought home the survivors. He had punished the guilty. He had sent a message that the galaxy would never forget. But some wounds could not be healed. He visited the memorial built for the 7B victims. 32,000 names carved into black stone. He found Governor's name and touched it gently. "We found them," he whispered, "every single one." Beside him, Sergeant Major O placed a small object at the base of the memorial. It was the stuffed bear with one ear, the same one she had returned to Little. He had given it back to her, asking her to leave it here for the children who did not come home. "The galaxy knows now," said quietly. "Knows what?" She looked up at the stars. They seemed different now, less hostile, more aware of what lived on this small blue planet. "That humans are the monsters you do not want to make angry, and the friends you want standing beside you." She paused. "They will think twice before hurting us again." Nodded slowly, "And those who help us will never regret it." They stood in silence for a long time, 2 soldiers paying respect to the dead. Around them, the wind carried the sound of children playing. Earth was at peace. The survivors were home. The guilty were punished. But humanity would never forget. In diplomatic offices across the galaxy, species who had once dismissed Earth as irrelevant updated their files. The entry for humanity now included a single warning, translated into 1,000 languages and memorized by every ambassador and trader and captain who might encounter human ships. 3 simple sentences that told the galaxy everything it needed to know. They remember, they return, they repay. Be careful which side of that equation you want to be on. Governor had died telling Earth that her people did not surrender. She had been right. Humans never surrendered. They never gave up. They never stopped fighting for their own. The Galactic Council had learned that lesson the hard way. Others would learn it too in the centuries to come. Some would choose to be humanity's friends. Others would choose to be their enemies. both would discover that humans kept their promises. Every single one.